Is Indonesia Asia's most strategic country? Well, we're going to find that out in today's video. Link to the original videos down in the description below. If you like the conversations and discussions we do here on my channel, consider subscribing. Without further ado, let's get into it.
The Indo-Pacific has become the single most geopolitically relevant region in the world. Heavy and middleweight global players like the US, China, India, and Japan sit at its fringes, making this region central in their security policies.
Which, by the way, it's I know because like a lot of Western media doesn't really cover this stuff, or at least this region of the world as heavily as like say Europe or even conflicts like Russia and Ukraine. I think what's happened, like I think as important as the Russian and Ukraine war is, what's going on over here is a little bit more. I would say it's very more. How do I describe it in a way that's like respectful, but also captures the point? What happens in this region of the world is far more has more of a lasting impact of what's going on, specifically because of all the countries who may don't get along with China or the U.S. being in that region. So it's just there's too many big players in one small area. So at least in my opinion, I think there's just a lot more can come from the conflicts in this area than, say, for example, Central Europe.
Perhaps the most critical area in this region is Southeast Asia.
Yeah,
At its
for sure.
political and geographical core is arguably the most strategic country on Earth. Indonesia, the country at the center of the Indo-Pacific region. Three main reasons explain the Southeast Asian nation's strategic emergence. First, the centrality of Indonesia in the global sea routes. Second, the diplomatic importance of Southeast Asia in global power balance and the US-China rivalry. And third, the military potential of Indonesia.
But it's not okay. So I know about the first one. Like I have a better understanding of the first one. The second one, I'm assuming I'm going to learn more in this video. So I'm actually really excited to learn about that. And the third, I mean, I kind of know a little bit about the Indonesian's military potential, but I think that's also something I'm hoping to learn more about. So this is really interesting. This is definitely I never really sat down and thought about like Indonesia's overall role in this the tension that's going on over there. But I do want to say that even though it's India or not India, even though he says China and the US, Japan is also very not fans of China too. So I just make that very clear too. So Japan is also very unhappy with China right now.
Southeast Asia is not only a geopolitical hub, but also a major gateway for the Europe-Asia undersea internet cables, like the Seamiwi 3, connecting South Korea to Belgium. Most countries are in fact connected to the internet via multiple sea cables, as these offer better protection to disruptions and tapping than land-based ones. These are critical pieces of infrastructure and are therefore thoroughly secured. Just like whole nations, people need to make sure their own lines of communication are secure. And Atlas VPN provides powerful tools to make your browsing both safer and more enjoyable.
Talk about an ad plug. That's kind of crazy.
Atlas VPN is now offering our viewers an 82% discount for one of the best VPN deals around at just $199 per month for their 3-year plan. With the added benefit of a 30-day money-back guarantee.
I've never used Atlas VPN, so I'm not going to recommend it, but I do recommend having a VPN. They're pretty cheap nowadays. They were really expensive back in the day, but they're way cheaper now. Even this video is a bit older, so they're even cheaper than that. So it doesn't hurt to have one, especially if it's just, to watch shows from other countries.
You can protect an unlimited amount of devices and be covered by the added benefit of Atlas VPN's ad and malware blocker. Being a total gearhead myself, I love watching the guys over at Top Gear, which thanks to Atlas VPN, is available pronto on Netflix UK. Some say that even the Stig uses Atlas VPN and that he is a Korean Netflix habitué. All we know is that you can not only watch your favorite Korean dramas, like the Stig, but you can also use your VPN to get some great deals, like on flight tickets, hotel bookings, and even your online shopping. Atlas VPN is offering an 82%
I don't know if I would use a VPN for buying tickets. I feel like that's, I don't know. It seems like it might cause some troubles.
discount to our viewers. Now, just $199 per month for their 3-year plan.
That's not
This
bad.
offer is for a limited time, so secure this deal by clicking the link in the description box below. And now, back to the video.
Back to the video.
So why is Indonesia such a global geopolitical hub? And what does this mean for the future? Well, the first simple answer to these questions is, as always, geography. Indonesia is the world's largest archipelagic nation, formed from over 16,000 islands, spread over an area of more than 3 million square miles. Indonesia is comprised of only 5 main islands: Sumatra, Java, majority of Borneo, Sulawesi, and half of Papua. It is a surprisingly huge country.
You know what's crazy? I've never really like looked into Indonesia into the sense of like learning about the islands. Like now I'm even curious of how does logistics work when it comes to like food, and is it all sourced locally or do you trade between islands? How does travel between islands work? Now I'm even just curious, like the average Indonesian like cross island living, what is it like? So this is because you hear about like vacations and stuff like that, but that doesn't really give you like the tourism side of things doesn't really give you a good look at what life is really like. So this is really interesting.
Extending across 3 time zones for over 3,000 miles, around the
Jesus.
same distance from New York City to Lisbon. Its land borders are with Malaysia, Papua New Guinea, and East Timor. Other neighboring countries include Singapore, the Philippines, Australia, and India's Andaman and Nicobar Islands. The country is also the 4th most populous nation on Earth,
Yeah.
with over 270 million citizens, around 150 of which live on Java, the most populated island in the world.
What? That is a lot of people on an island. I am blown away. How does that even work? Now I really need to learn about Indonesia to figure out what is a city, what does an island full of 150 million people look like? What is it really like? That's insane. That's insane. It's also kind of an accomplishment if you think about it. Like, I mean, it is an accomplishment. The fact that you can manage that many people on an island. But wow.
The sinking capital, Jakarta, accounts itself for around 10 million residents. Indonesia's size and makeup presents some unique challenges, which we will be talking about later. But for now, we need to ask, how does this nature shape Indonesia's strategic value? Indonesia's first strategic value lies in its central position in global sea trade routes. Specifically, its choke points act as gateways, connecting and potentially shutting the access between Indian and Pacific Oceans. The majority of the trade traveling between the Indian and Pacific Oceans passes partially or fully through Indonesia's territorial waters. This strategic value is only compounded by the many choke points that lie at the entrance and exit of these critical waterways.
Yeah, that's so many entrances, so many different points of entry that go through Indonesia. That's kind of insane. I didn't even realize it was this many.
It seems that no matter what it is or where it is traveling, all goods are eventually forced through Indonesia's 4 major choke points at some point in their life cycle.
If not, it would just be so unpractical, it wouldn't even be worth it. So you're literally having to go through Indonesia. That's crazy. That's actually kind of crazy. That's like endless money.
Routes starting at the oil-rich Persian Gulf or destined for Europe are funneled through the Malacca Strait. Those between Asia and Africa typically sail through the Sunda Strait, while deep draft tankers and bulk carriers prefer the deeper waterways of the Lombok and Mumbai-Wetar Straits. It has been estimated that around 50% of global trade by tonnage passes through these sea lanes each year.
God,
and for some
dang.
resources, this dependence is only amplified. For example, it is estimated that 80% of China's oil imports pass through the Malacca Strait, and that figure rises up to 90% for Japan and South Korea.
What? Ooh, to me, that's kind of scary. That's kind of scary. Mostly because if you think about it, that like if you're Indonesia, right? And you're responsible for that much of valuable resources passing through your borders to get to other countries. It's if something bad were to happen on those routes, that's a lot. People are not going to be very happy because that's like a national security threat at that point. So that's kind of crazy. I didn't even realize that.
As Asia's markets continue to develop and their role in the international trade route continues to boom, Indonesia's strategic role over the world's maritime trade is only set to grow. However, two main threats hang over these stretches of water, which actually bolster Indonesia's influence as it is encouraged to take an increasingly active role in policing them. First, these straits are vulnerable to active blockage and piracy. Second,
Which I'm going to be fair though, a lot of ports nowadays are a lot of routes and stuff right now. We have a really bad pirate problem across the world. So I'm going to be fair here. It's not just here, but a lot of the world is having and if you're wondering, it's because in the past a lot of these pirate organizations weren't heavily funded, but a lot of these like terrorist organizations or and like enemy governments would use these pirate groups as proxies as in an effort of a war or something, like kind of like the Houthis, for example. They're terrorists who pirate a lot, so and they were funded by Iran. So it's like it's not just Indonesia that's having to that has this risk or this problem.
waterways are already struggling with congestion, which may only escalate in the future as trade volumes and the size of ships that service them continue to grow.
Yeah.
Strict safety regulations and continuous trans-regional police controls have kept these stretches of water relatively safe and accessible to this point. However, with a forecasted rise in the domestic consumption of goods and resources in all Asian nations in the upcoming decades, increasing trade is presumably the most critical challenge for these straits. Currently, the Malacca Strait is one of the most important choke points on Earth. Around 10,000 ships pass through the strait every year.
Jesus.
But its relatively shallow waters place a natural limit on the size of vessels that can use it. For larger vessels, the only alternatives to the Malacca Strait are also all choke points in Indonesia's territorial waters. The closest is the Sunda Strait, sitting between the islands of Sumatra and Java. This stretch of water, which itself is only around 15 miles wide and 50 miles long, already services an average of 3,500 ships, transporting around 15 million metric tons of cargo per year.
Wow.
A more popular choice for the largest vessels is the Lombok Strait. With an average depth of 150 meters and 11 miles of width at its narrowest, this route offers a far safer alternative to the large tankers and bulk carriers. For this reason, it is the second most popular of these choke points, with an average of 3,900 ships annually transporting around 140 million metric tons of goods per year.
That is a lot of ships. That is a lot of ships. Oh my goodness.
At a combined value of 40 billion US dollars. The third major strait is the Mumbai-Wetar, between the island of Timor and Wetar. This passage is extremely deep, making it favorable to the ultra-large crude carriers. Indonesia is a vital player in the world's seaborne trade. Its straits effectively act as valves, connecting and potentially halting the flow of goods between the Pacific and Indian Oceans. This gateway role is also important in explaining why the US and China have turned to Jakarta in search of an ally for their ongoing geopolitical competition. Being the center of the Indo-Pacific region, Indonesia is also at the crossroads of multiple and often conflicting goals of some of the world's largest powers. By far the most influential in this region, China has pushed for the expansion of its economic and diplomatic influence through the Belt and Road Initiative since 2013.
Which they've been going. China's been getting really aggressive with that. So, especially, I mean, this video is 3 years old. So as of like the last year, it's been even more. They've been even more aggressive with that initiative.
As its land section unfurls through Central Asia all the way to Europe, its maritime version covers the whole of Southeast Asia, the Middle East, and Africa. From a Chinese perspective, it is essential to bound Southeast Asia to the BRI, both as Beijing looks to create a favorable diplomatic and security environment around its borders, and to bolster its territorial claims in the region, especially on the hotly contested South China Sea. Indonesia has formally adhered to the Maritime Belt and Road Initiative, and China has been its largest trading partner since 2013. In 2019, this trade had a value of around $72 billion US,
Jeez.
and now accounts for 43% of Indonesia's foreign trade. By comparison, that's almost the equivalent to its combined trade with the US, Japan, and India. The rise of China's economic and military clout has shifted the global balance of power towards Asia. America had been mostly focused on the Middle East for the majority of the late 1990s and 2000s, outsourcing its commitment to Southeast Asia through its ongoing relationships with major regional partners, such as Australia, Japan, and the Philippines. This largely changed under the Obama administration's Pacific rebound and famously coy pivot to Asia, which was bolstered under the Trump and Biden administrations. As part of this, Indonesia was one of the few Southeast Asian nations to receive the green light from the US State Department to receive American weaponry. The United States also holds numerous military exercises with Indonesia, including the most recent 2021's Garuda Shield.
So wait, so they trade predominantly with China, and they operate with their initiative. But then when it comes to military improvement, I guess they partner with. I mean, it makes sense because the U.S. is the strongest military in the world by far. But it just seems like they're neutral, but they're not afraid to actually engage with both sides. Is what it seems like, which is actually really smart. I feel like if you're that vital to trade, you actually prevent more problems for yourself by just by playing nice with both sides. Because at the end of the day, it's like if you pick, let's say, for example, you go all in on the US because they're the strongest military in the world, right? Well, China's right there. So now you have to deal with them and they're closer to your border. So you have now a hostile neighbor that's really close. Well, then let's say you choose China all out, all over, you choose China above everybody, right? As your ally, then you now have the strongest military in the world by far against you. So it's like, no matter what you choose, you're just gonna have so many problems. So I think that actually makes a lot of sense to just be neutral. You have less issues. Like you're like, it doesn't, I'm just gonna do my part and stay out of it.
Which was the largest ever between the two countries. Conflicting foreign powers' interests have become the norm in Southeast Asia, as the area yet again becomes the focus of competing defense policy agendas from major powers eager to project their influence over each other's backyard. Indonesia, strategically placed at the center of this region and the Indo-Pacific, yet vital to its access, is in prime position to exploit this reality as its importance only grows over time. Indonesia needs to bolster its own capabilities to avoid being used as a puppet in a foreign power rivalry. If a conflict between the US and China ever visits this region, securing Indonesia's cooperation could drastically tilt the strategic balance in favor of its ally. Potentially, Indonesia has the size and a favorable geography to turn itself into a major regional naval power. Two main policies have created the bedrock of Jakarta's maritime strategy. The first of this is the Global Maritime Fulcrum, a tangible government plan to boost Indonesia's maritime power. And the second is the Archipelagic Vision, a cultural movement that seeks to support Indonesia's archipelagic national identity. The Global Maritime Fulcrum was a foundational policy of the current president, Joko Widodo's first-term election. This policy is essential to solidifying Indonesia's strategic value between the Indian and Pacific Oceans and acts as a catalyst for building major regional maritime dominance. Of the 5 pillars laid out in the GMF, 3 focus on domestic affairs, while 2 stress the necessity of first, expanding maritime cooperation with other countries, and second, the buildup of its naval capabilities.
Which honestly, if you're gonna be if you're gonna be a country that works with everybody, you have to build your navy. I mean, or if you're an island country, right? Like if you're in the base of the ocean and you're not landlocked, it's how do I say, like if you're gonna be neutral, you need a military. No matter like a you don't need the largest military. Obviously, that's pretty impossible nowadays, but you need to be able to at least enforce something, right? Because if we look at World War II, for example, there was a lot of cases where people were trying to be neutral, but then they ended up getting taken over. So it's at the end of the day, like I think this is really smart. It's if you want to turn your geography into your business, like your primary source of income, because it's going to get bigger every time. Like you need to be able to enforce that, because at the end of the day, if people are relying on your ports and something bad happens there, they're not gonna blame the people attacking your ports. They're gonna blame you. So I actually think this is really smart.
The Indonesian Navy, also known as TNI, have planned a major overhaul of its capabilities through the Minimum Essential Force policy, aiming to become a green water naval power by 2024. Indonesia possesses the 6th largest exclusive economic zone in the world. With its over 6 million square kilometers of water space to patrol, Indonesia's primary security threat has always been the challenge of administrating its numerous territory and population, dispersed over such a fractured landmass.
Yeah, I mean, even that too is just that's tough. I mean, and that's the thing. It's just like the thing about oceans. It's like eh, it's kind of like the idea of pirates. You can never really. It's how are you going to really get rid of pirates when there's just so much water? It's almost it's not saying it's an excuse not to try. I think you should try to police it, like, and try your best. But I do think that at some point, like you got to be realistic. Like it's gonna be it's not impossible, but it's gonna be really really hard no matter what. Whereas like if someone was landlocked and like like the U.S., we have the luxury of being so dominant in our geography and where we are located, and we have 2 oceans on either side of us. It's like it's much easier to handle. But when you have this so much water all around you, it's kind of tough.
Beyond issues of nationhood and diplomacy, this has a heavy real-world cost. For example, it is estimated that illegal fishing costs Indonesia's economy around $3 billion per year.
Jeez.
And its piracy is such a critical issue that Indonesian waters have accounted for around 20% of global piracy attacks.
Dang, I didn't even know it was that bad. Holy crap. But this was 3 years ago. This video is 3 years old. Is it worse nowadays? That's crazy. I mean, it makes sense because it's so important, but I didn't realize it was 20%. Dang. Like how do you even like You would need so many boats and so many. Your navy would have to be so huge to even do this. It kind of feels impossible. Not gonna lie to you guys, that seems pretty hard. Like, unless you come up with like, I don't even know. I don't even know how. Um, that's intense because pirates. I guess pirates have gotten worse over the years, so I don't know. This is pretty crazy. That's pretty tough. That's a tough problem to solve.
In 2017, piracy has also spilled beyond Indonesia's domestic security, to the point where it has been a major issue in Jakarta's relationship with Australia for years. Many analysts agree that Indonesia lacks a force capable of performing basic surveillance and reconnaissance of its vast internal waters, let alone projection far from its shores. A major reason for the country's lack of capable military is rooted in the government's staunch policy on non-alignment. For example, the country operates a blend of NATO, Russian, and even Chinese-made military equipment.
Ooh, that's not a good idea. I'm just gonna be honest with you. That's not a good idea.
American F-16s operate alongside Russian Su-30s and Su-27, and even armed Chinese CH-4 UAVs. All these machines use different ammunition and parts for repair, causing their use at an operational level to be complex and expensive.
And inefficient. That's actually really bad. Because like the thing is, it's like I understand as an American myself, I get it. Like American stuff might be the best, but it's also it's just so expensive. And so I get it. Like not every country needs American weapons. Like it's just for some, in a lot of cases, it's impractical to get American weapons because it's just so expensive. And not only that, what's really expensive is the maintenance, creating the program to train soldiers, building the facilities to house these things. For example, if you're buying planes, learning to build actual runways and actual runways that can actually do the proper, like that is properly coded to these planes. Like it's just there's just so expensive. So it's like I get that, but if you're gonna mix things, that you're creating a lot of problems.
This is a cost the Navy cannot afford, as continuously constrained budgets have already forced it to adopt a policy of prioritizing small upgrades on increasingly older vessels. For example, the bulk of its large vessel fleet is composed of 5 Ahmad Yani-class frigates, built around the 1960s in the Netherlands, and the latest addition in the service surface fleets are decades old, decommissioned South Korean Navy corvettes. It is hoped that the proposed Green Water Fleet will solve both issues.
I mean, in fairness, you're not using this fleet to fight other powers. You're just using it to police. So, I mean, in some ways, okay, I'm going to be fair here. It's not an excuse. Okay. But I'm going to be fair. You don't really need the giant you don't need aircraft carriers. Like you just need quality up to date stuff. And it doesn't have to be the big stuff. So, I mean, this doesn't sound impossible, right? Like it's just, I think the issue is having a mix of things more than, just stick to one and just, go with that. I think because you don't really need the big stuff. You're not fighting other countries. You're fighting pirates.
Unifying the state internally and allowing it to finally grow influence in the region. Indonesia's state ethos is intertwined with its maritime projection. The Indonesian archipelagic vision, also known in the country as Wawasan Nusantara, promotes the development of a united and integrated Indonesian nation. The country is physically split into many different islands, ethnic groups, and dialects, making the building of a united nation a vital, yet long overdue aspect of its existence.
Wow. That's tough. I didn't even realize there's that much going on here. That's also, the fact that you guys are trying to solve this even shows that like it's a little late, but still it's like it's almost like it's like Indonesia was blessed with one of the greatest geographies, but also one of the most complicated issues in that. It's kind of crazy. I didn't even realize that there was this much going on locally or domestically, I guess.
At the basis of Indonesian archipelagic concept lies the control of its surrounding seas. Waterways are considered as highways that connect the archipelago throughout.
Which even makes more sense now to be neutral because you rather focus on this stuff than dealing with other countries. Because how are you going to be able to deal with the stuff that you're trying to solve locally when you over here beefing with big old powers that are the ones selling you the weapons? So it's like, oh my gosh. Wow. This actually makes a lot of sense. This actually makes a lot of sense. This is actually, yeah. And tackling impossible, like solving impossible problems. They're not impossible. They are possible. It just takes a lot of focus. I think a lot of clear direction on what you're trying to do and not straying away from it. Right. I think that's the tricky thing about when it comes to like, at least what I've seen, like an example in America, when you have two political candidates or two presidents who are vastly different, they change the direction of the country. So it sometimes a good idea might end up turning bad because they don't actually stick to the original vision. They might change it. However, something like this is just you got to stay on the vision, stay on the path, and I think you could solve it. It really sounds it's just hard, but it seems like you can do it, which is crazy. Definitely the most strategic country by far. Yeah, I believe this video has convinced me.
Ideally, making it one big interconnected island.
Yeah.
A lack of capable port infrastructure and transportation investment has created deep contrasts between Indonesia's regional economies, exacerbating regional inequality, entrenching underinvestment, and keeping regional fractures from closing. Smoothing out this regionalism is in part why President Widodo announced in 2019 that the capital of Indonesia would move from Jakarta, an already overcrowded megacity on the main island of Java, where 60% of Indonesia's population currently lives, to Borneo in 2024. The move comes at a great cost, and the location is certainly not the most convenient.
I don't know. I haven't visited Indonesia, so I'm not gonna disagree with that. I mean, that could be entirely true. But if you look at it on the map, you would actually want your capital to be more in the center than on the outside, because if you ever get in beef with another country, they're just gonna bum rush this point right here. They're not gonna care about everything else. Whereas like if you're more center in your country's borders, it takes a lot more to get to it. So I actually think that was like a strategic move. Now, in regards to like that specific location, again, I don't actually know if it's better or worse. So I'm gonna trust this guy on it, but you can let me know in the comments. I actually don't know.
The move comes at a great cost, and the location is certainly not the most convenient. The island is not only relatively unpopulated, but is also shared with two other countries, Malaysia and Brunei. Regardless, President Widodo directly cited the strategic value of the new location as the main driving force for the move. And it seems like the costs of moving are vastly outweighed by the strategic value that a more central capital will bring to the country.
I mean, I see that, but maybe he could have picked a better place. I don't know. I would have to trust y'all guys' judgment.
While on this channel, we have mainly focused on external challenges to nations, Indonesia is a country that is shaped by internal division. From the outside, its geography would seem to make it one of the most influential countries on Earth. But in reality, this same geography places limitations on its economic and political development. If Indonesia were to fully implement with solid resources its archipelago state and naval goals, it would become a major power in Asia.
It really would. It really would. It's just, now granted, again, I'm going to be fair here. Policing water is really, really hard. It's just really, really hard. But if y'all can like really lock in and like follow through with this vision, I think that it would change the dynamic for sure. Like you wouldn't it would take you from being this power that's like kind of just having to be nice to everybody, but being your really stepping up for your own, like setting your own presence there. Like it's Not saying that you don't have it, but if you would have so much more influence if you can hammer all these things out. Like this is crazy. This is so complex and so like it blows my mind how interesting all this is. And now I'm curious about the islands and the dynamics of the different dialects, the difference. What is the what is the local economy like on each of these islands? Like, what is it? What does the new capital look like versus the old capital? There's so many questions now that are like, oh my god, this place is so interesting. Oh my goodness. Shout outs to Raymond for recommending this video. Um, this was he recommended in one of the comments of my other videos, and yeah, this is by far probably one of the most interesting dynamics I've seen on any of the videos that I react to. This is we're gonna follow up with more Indonesia because this is I want to follow through and see what this looks like over time. So this was 3 years ago. So we're gonna find a video that's maybe 1 year or 2 years ago. See and do like a time lapse and see what it's like every other year. If not, we can just jump to current day and see how it's going now. Because I think they could have y'all guys could have made a lot of progress in 3 years. Because it was already post pandemic. So it's like a lot of economies had a boom like around now. So I think there's a lot of potential. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Was I fair? Dude, is there even more questions that I probably should ask? Anyway, love you guys. Check out the next one. Bye-bye. This video is brought to you actually by viewers like you. Thank you so much for subscribing and being part of my journey and allowing me to be a part of yours. Let's create new memories this 2025 on our road to 1 million subscribers. And with all that jazz out of the way, I just want to say thank you so much. I love y'all and enjoy the video.